So we did a lot of videos, reviews, data analytics on the SQ putter by Performance Golf. This is the SQ2. And there's a lot of things that I liked about this putter. But there were a few things that I wish I could change. And I'm going to show you how you can change loft, lie, grip, and length at home without any fancy tools. So let's get fitted.
Be the right club today. Yes!
What's going on, guys? G2 here with 3-putt bogey, and I really like this SQ putter by Performance Golf. There were a few things that I wanted to see improvements in, but overall, for what the claim is to reduce or practically eliminate 3-putts, it 100% did. Now, there are problems with buying a putter right off the rack, right? It is not going to fit you the way that you want it to, but fear not, in this video, we're going to change some things on this putter, not using any special tools, that you can do at home and try and maybe fit your off-the-rack putter better to you. The specific things that I want to change are the length. Okay, this is a 34-inch putter. I want to take it down to 33 inches. That's a fairly easy thing that any of you can do at home with little to no tools. We're going to change the grip. The SQ putter grip that it came with was a double pistol grip. I thought that I was going to like it. In the end, I didn't. So we're going to change it to my go-to Super Stroke 1.0 pistol right here. We're also going to change the lie of this putter. So how does it sit on the ground? I want it a little bit more upright. So I'm going to show you how to bend this without any fancy tools. And then finally, we're going to change the loft of it. So how does the putter sit at address? Is it very forward? Is it very open? Find the right one for you, and I'm going to show you how you can do that at home as well with no fancy tools. So the very first thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to remove the head from the shaft. This is not a hard process, just a little bit of heat back here, get it a little warm, give it a little twist. If it doesn't go, get it a little bit warmer, give it a little twist. Obviously, you want to have a glove on because this is going to be warm, but everyone knows how to take a head off. If you don't, we've got videos all over the place. Check it. I'll link one up right here. It'll show you how to take the head off of the putter. Once we have that done, now we can go to the shop. So this is the shaft. Now we're going to hold this up as if we were looking down the line of the putter. And you can see just goes straight down into a curve. Now I want to compare that to, like, here is a Scotty Cameron putter, right? So this is your typical hosel adapted on the edge, same spot. But if we look at these in comparison, you can see how much less this bends. And it's because of the way that the shaft goes into this particular head. It is a very angled entry, right? It's like that. That's how the shaft comes out. So it needed to have that very deep bend. If you tried to put other shaft other than this in here, this would sit up. Here's square. Look, I mean, the grip is past the toe. So you would basically be putting behind you. So this shaft is 100% unique to this head, and it's going to be very hard to try to replicate something like that using something we have. We'd have to bend this an extraordinary amount, so we're just going to bend this one. The first thing that we're going to do here is we want to change the lie angle of the club, and that's how this sits in here. So what we're going to do is we are going to bend this angle here that way. I want this shaft to sit just a little bit more upright. We're talking like a couple degrees. And to measure that, I'm going to show you how easy this is. You don't need any fancy tools or anything like that. Grab the piece of paper, hold this down, and we are going to trace the shaft on both sides. Okay, so that is the current angle of our shaft. Sorry. Be nice. Now remember, what we want to do here is we want to bend this. So we're going to bend this shaft that way. Super easy to do. And we only need to go a couple degrees. It's a vise, and then I have these that I use for hosels and things of that nature. But this will fit perfectly into this guy right here. So let's set this up so that we are square and we know which way we're going to bend. We're bending up towards you guys as you're looking at me. Okay, got it nice and tight. That shaft isn't going in there. It'll twist a little, but that's okay. So we're gonna get it in here as snug as we can. We wanna make sure we have that bend line above our vise. And we're just gonna gently lift up from the grip end here while holding this down. And we're just gonna gently bend that back up. We're not muscling this here. This isn't crazy amounts of strength or anything like that. Just gentle bends. If you want to, you can heat it up, give it a little bit of heat. I would stay away from too much because you could end up snapping the shaft, and that's not good. But a little bit of heat will help you. You could also take off any of the chrome plating on that. So just very gentle pumps. We're not going hard on this. And if you can see, we're gonna put our new line on this. We've increased that angle just by a couple degrees from our bottom. Not much. Another way that you can use this is if you have a wooden table, drill a hole in it, put this into the table, and use the same process. Now when we put this in there, and we do a rough setup, we can definitely see that our lie angle is way more upright. All right, so that is the easiest way to change the lie, and you can see it really took no effort whatsoever. If you don't have that vise or that vise clamp insert, I got that from Amazon. I think it was $9. Just look up golf club vise insert and you'll find it. The wood method, the table method on your workbench or whatever, just drill a hole that is the same or maybe just slightly larger diameter than the shaft, and you'll be able to bend it up. And I think that is the easiest way. Just be careful. You want to go slow. You can use a little amount of heat, but if you go too fast, it will snap or it will take a bend or a dent, or you could start to crack the chrome plating along the shaft, and then it will flake off and eventually rust and look horrible. So just take your time. This is the hardest part of this whole process. So once you've done that, everything else from down here is fairly easy. So the next thing we want to change is the loft. Now you can see, because of the way this hosel is bored, as we change and turn the shaft, we're not turning, we're basically just pivoting it inside of the hosel. You can change the loft at address. Back here would be a tunnel loft. Where this has normally been set up is right here. So all we need to do to change the loft is just get this set up into the position we like and epoxy it. And that's where we're gonna go, so that it is perfectly square going down this line and not set up that way. All you're gonna do is grab yourself something flat. In this case, we're gonna use a nice piece of wood, and we are going to put this flat, right? Flat down. So the putter is sitting just like that. Then you're gonna grab the shaft, slide it in, and allow the shaft to lay naturally with this flat and square on your wood. Now, once that's done, you're gonna come down to eye level and you're gonna look. There's a gap under here, right? A gap that runs the whole length of the club. You're gonna see this distance, right? And you wanna have that consistent throughout the shaft. Now the shaft does taper. You can see it's thicker up here, thinner down in the middle. So you will see a slight angle as you go towards the head. But up until about right here, this shaft is all the same diameter. So as long as you're consistent from this point to this point, you will be consistent down the line. If you need to make any adjustments, grab some shims or something to hold this in place, whatever it is, while you're allowing that glue to set, and you'll be fine. Now at this point, before you glue this up, what I would suggest is that if you want to do any paint fill or coloring or sanding or buffing of the golf head, do it now, because it is much easier to work with than if you have a shaft attached to it. So one of the big issues I had with this club is the way that it naturally set up. That shaft was so far forward, it closed the face at my address. Now this changes for everyone, so that's why this is fitting to your swing and your stance and your stroke. A forward pressed putter will have a tendency to roll the ball for those first 2 or 3 feet almost down into the turf. You're basically compressing, you're hitting down on the golf ball, so the ball is going to go down into the turf, it's going to hit, and it's going to skid. So if you ever hear that skid, you're most likely forward pressing, or it could be the grain of the green. If you're putting into the grain of the green, it will skid. The problem with the forward press is it will severely mess up your distance control with your putting, because those first 3 feet are what create the smooth roll that you want to see, the end over end roll. If it's going backwards or it's going down in the turf, or on the other way, if you have too much loft and it's going up in the air, that is going to mess up your distance control, and it's also going to cause you to miss a little bit left and a little bit right. Because just like with your irons or with your driver, when you forward press, you typically close the club face. So if you close the club face of a putter 1 or 2 degrees, you're going to miss, depending on distance, 3 to 7 feet on the left side. If you have it too far back in your stance and that face is open at impact, you're going to miss it to the right. So it's all about getting what is your perfect spot. And that's what you need to determine first. What looks best to you? Look at some of your other putters, try out some other things, and see where does that line up for you. I don't like a forward press. I don't. It doesn't work with me, so that's why we're changing it. But that is the reason why you may not be getting the best roll that you possibly could. So once that's all glued up and done, now we're just on to finishing touches, right? We're on to the length and the grip. All right, so we have this all glued up. It sat overnight. We also did, while this was going, we kind of changed the paint scheme here on this thing. And I also added a shaft skin. I mentioned on my review that the glare, specifically right here, got a little wild because this almost sits as a center shaft. And with those center shafts, you see from here down. So to reduce that glare, I like putting a shaft skin on. So that's what we did. It's sitting right now. You can see, compared to when we set this up at address, how that shaft is basically running perfectly in line, not ahead of the face here, which is what we wanted. The angle is a little bit more upright, so we did do that bend. It has held, it hasn't changed. So the last 2 things that we want to do is shorten the length of this, and we want to add a new grip. Now I did pull the other grip off. I was just curious to see what was happening under here, and there was no counterweights or anything like this in the butt end of the shaft. And the grip, interestingly, was pretty standard. There really wasn't much to it. It's just a straight shaft that goes right up the grip like any normal putting grip. I thought maybe it might be like a lab putter, and those lab putters, actually the shaft sits at an angle on the grip, kind of like this, a little off angle. But this one didn't do that. So this shaft was a 34-inch shaft, and we are going to cut about 1 inch off. So we're going to make this a 33. Now I am going to use my chop saw here, just because it's a little bit easier to make a cut. But if you are in a pinch, you can always use one of these little plumber's tools to cut the shaft. It'll work just fine. Okay, so to regrip this, we are going to go with my go-to pistol Super Stroke 1.0. Now, one of the things that I will say about these grips, if you've ever put one of these Super Stroke grips on, you know, one, they're extremely tough. You have to use a lot of solvent and you have to be very fast, otherwise it'll get stuck. The other thing that I commonly see is once this is installed into the shaft, you'll get a gap. It's like, I call it the Super Stroke ring that ends up here. That's empty space. And it's typically because when they cut this shaft down or whatever the case may be, they go below the taper, but it looks open and it doesn't look really good, in my opinion. So what you do is you get yourself a little piece of build-up tape, right? Very small piece. And you put this where the bottom edge of the grip would be. Now, thing to note here is these Super Stroke grips, unlike your typical grip that goes all the way to the butt end, because they have these threads and all that other stuff in there, these grips actually go to right here. It's a little design, and you'll see it. This is where the grip basically ends. So if you had it set for 33 inches, as your grip length, your putter length, it's actually going to be 33.5 because of all of this extra. So just keep that in mind. I don't really trim my shafts any shorter to account for that, but I do use it when I'm aligning this. So I'll align this right up to that point, and then right here is where I would put my extra layer of tape over, and then I would just put my grip tape over top of that and then just go the whole way down. But since we have the shaft skin already on here, we're going to use that shaft skin essentially as our extra layer. So we're going to take all of this off from here up, just a simple little utility blade, and we're just going to go around in a circle here like so. Good pressure on there, so we're cutting the skin. Okay, and then we'll just go ahead and peel this off. So now we've got that shaft skin off of it. We're just going to take off this little placeholder piece of tape. If you didn't have the skin, you would just keep this on there, because this would be directly up on the shaft. So one of the other things I do like to do is, instead of using the normal 48 millimeter grip tape, for Super Strokes I go with the thinner one, just because there's less sticky surface. The friction of these are super tight as it is, so you don't need all of that tape on there. Plus it makes the install a little easier. Really make sure that we get a good amount of solvent on the tape and on the grip. Don't go cheap on solvent, especially for these grips. You will pay for it. Okay, and then we're going to go one smooth stroke, one super stroke in. Easy. Now I've got lines here on the back of my backer board here to kind of help me align the face and then the grip, just to make sure everything is square. I'm going to show you an even easier way to do this. This is a real old school way, but it works absolutely great. What you're going to need for this method is basically a flat square surface. So we have the workbench here, we have the side of the workbench and the top. We know these are 90 degrees, right? And we know that the face of our putter is flat, and we know that the front of our putter grip is also flat. So if you hold them like so, we have a 90-degree angle from the putter face to the flat of the putter. So you're going to hold the putter face square to to the side of the table. You're going to let this fall down, kind of get it level, keeping the putter face square, and then just simply rock this back and forth, and it will get the flat here will match the flat of the table. You will now have a perfectly square grip to the face. This is what I was talking about earlier about the Super Stroke gap. See how tight this is to the shaft. There is no gapping. You don't even see any tape. And that's why you put that, just that little piece of tape extension just to expand the width of the shaft at this point, and it looks really good and really professional. And if you have a gap, they didn't do this. So for the length and the grip, I am a big proponent of consistency. So if you have a grip that you like, and maybe you're a putter hoe like I am, and you've got a whole rack of them back there, all of them have the same grip because I like the grip and it keeps the consistency from putter to putter if you decide to change. Same thing with the length. Now, the one thing I will tell you with length is very specific to the lie angle of the putter, because remember, the flatter a putter may be, now this is toe up, but imagine that this was toe down, the flatter it is, the further the shaft will travel to get to you. Conversely, if it's upright, right, the shaft is going to be a different length than if it would be flat or neutral, whatever it is. So you're going to have to play around with what feels good. That's why we do the lie first, to get it where we want, and then we can adjust the length accordingly. This is done. All we have to do now is just take it out to the putting green and see if we like those improvements and those changes that we've made. So we are going to close this out with a couple rolls of the putters to see if we like what we did. Until next time, make sure that you swing as hard as you can, just in case you hit the ball. G2 out. And I guess I'm thinking about trying to make this, but I'm also thinking about not letting it go all the way back down that hill. We're just going to play this at the 2.5 feet on the right side and just see what it does. All right, that's always nice. All right, so we've got an uphill. Looks like it's going to break left, so we can be aggressive. We're going to go maybe one ball right edge. Didn't break. It's the easy little taparoo. Not much. All right, let's just make a good stroke. Long putt here, up the hill, gonna break to the right. This has nothing to do with trying to make it, it's just trying to get it closer. So this is all about speed and a okay-ish line. I don't think that's hard enough. Yeah, all right, cozied up. So we got 2 par putts, finish the round.